It took me 5 long years to draw an Iowa tag. You know, at my age, going on 57, I might get 2 more Iowa tags in my lifetime as a non-resident, maybe. So it's a coveted tag for me at my age, and I've been looking forward to this, and I meant to get down there and do some spring scouting, but I never did. I figured I could really map that area well. It's hill country, you know, and figure it out pretty well. You know, hill country is one of the easier terrains to read map-wise. My friend Scott Buckley, who is just an incredible killer of giant bucks, lives down that way, and he has a cabin down there, and he let me stay at his cabin. And he came down and hunted with me for a few days, which was nice because I was going solo. I actually like going solo more than hunting into groups. Hunting into groups is fun, but solo, I'm a killer. You know, you get this mindset of like worrying about what the other guys are doing and what they're thinking. You know, if they're going to be worried about you if you get back real late, or worrying about where they set up, and, you know, trying to throw them a bone when they're having a struggle and giving them one of your spots. You know, when I go alone, I got to focus. I didn't want to just rely on rut. You know, everybody goes down there that first and second week of November, and everybody takes their vacations down there that first or second week of November, and they start pounding the woods. And although that can be a great time to sit in a funnel down there, it can also be frustrating with the amount of pressure, and it can be more haphazard than really figuring something out. You just have to hit a funnel kind of, and everybody is getting pretty good at reading those funnels on maps. So that can be a tough time to hunt, actually. But you should get action. You should see deer. But I kind of like the idea of hunting when there ain't that many people around. So I was going to go the last week of October, first week of November, and then spend a couple weeks down there. The last 3 or 4 years, I've been on some sort of challenge or hunt every year that last week of October. And I've been missing the grandkids trick-or-treating and my wife's birthday, and I told my wife I'd come back for that, so I left it a week earlier. So I did a mid-October Iowa hunt. And this video is just going to be the mid-October Iowa hunt. One thing I didn't realize until right before I left, kind of how the planning went, is it was the peak of their early muzzleloader season, which people in Iowa take their muzzleloader hunting pretty serious. So I called Scott about it, and Scott said, well, there'll be pressure, but I don't think it'll be that much. And I was kind of surprised because the whole time hunting, I only ran into one hunter. And that one hunter was driving around a dry lake bed on a fat tire bike dressed in orange with a gun ready on the handlebars, looking for deer. I don't think he was a threat. As I creep up this ridge, I've only gone like 200 yards. I've already jumped 3 different lone does. Which seems a little weird to me. The last one was bedded right here. No fawns. And the area where these does are laying is just full of scrapes. It just seems to be coming down this ridge, so it's kind of going with the theory. There ain't as many oaks in here as what I thought, but I found one over there that had acorns underneath it, and the ground was just ripped up underneath it. But it could be that the sign is coming from over there, but it appears to be coming down the ridge. That's what I think. But there's some signage coming this way. But I have to think it's coming from that way. There looks like there's better bedding up in there. So we're just going to keep going forward. But it's cool, we're seeing deer. Seen more deer in the last 200 yards than I've seen in the last week in Wisconsin. Welcome to Iowa. I headed way back up a ridge to the far end of the property up against some private managed land. But when I got there, I found a ladder stand and a cell camera and a bunch of cut down trees and shooting lanes that were fresh. I'm a little over a mile back. I found a couple acorns up there, but most of them are eaten.
The sign was old. It was like 2 weeks old. There was some fresh tracks and stuff in there, but it just seemed like the deer were diverted. And when I got up to here, the spot that looked the best on the maps, on the public land, there was a giant 2-person ladder stand and a cell cam underneath it, and a couple really big rubs, and a lot of old historical rubs. And so I followed those trails and stuff down here, and literally the sign I found over there that was fresher came from in here. And I think any deer going up into that ridge system is probably coming through this grass. Now, that's kind of the area I figured there's bedding in. There's little points and draws. And I think you're going to be coming out of here, maybe going along there. And the main trail seems to go right past me here, but man, they could come through here anywhere. So maybe I can at least get eyes on one if they don't wind me, and make a move tomorrow. But I think this is a good position. I'm going to set up and give it a shot. I'm finally set up. It's 4 o'clock. Holy crap, did it take me a while to get back here and get set up. But I don't know. You can see that tree way back here is where I showed you I was going to set up. I climbed all the way up the tree, set up the stand, and from up there, I could see that about 50 to 60 yards in front of me is where all the sign was. This is just ripped up here. So I moved up here. Now I can't be sure if this is an old sign from before that guy had to stand, but that stand is 300-400 yards behind me. I would think those deer are still coming out here, just moving different directions. It's really hard in this grass to tell if the sign's fresh, and I don't want to walk around in case I got to come back here tomorrow. But there's a nice little draw up here on the onyx. I can see that there's a draw that goes up into there. And all this sign is coming out of there. I mean, there's a heavy beat trail coming right through here. All the grass is dead on it. Going down through here. And then those trails I saw back there are off of here too. But there are some trails that come out right there too and over the top. But I think they're all coming from that draw. And the good thing is I can see into that woods and I can see in the grass pretty far. So if one comes through, I should get eyes on it. The wind's a little bit just off. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I doubt anybody's ever really hunted down here. These deer probably would be caught by surprise if they came into here.
No deer seen on this hunt.
The hardest part about coming into this area is not having pre-scouted or anything. I should have got here in spring and looked around. But I do have the advantage of my friend Scott Buckley, who lives down here and hunts down here, and he gave me some advice, and he has shot on this particular property 3 or 4 giants, maybe even more than that. I know one of them was over 170 inches typical, and so I know this holds big bucks. And yesterday I scouted that ridge and ended up hunting way down there. It just seemed to me like the action was coming across here. And then looking at some maps, I saw a draw that goes up into here and a draw that goes up into there. And all the signs seemed to go across where I was first going in. So I kind of wanted to look over here. Now I got this draw here that goes up, and I kind of scouted around this side and found some old sign and stuff, and it just looked like a good rut funnel. I also found hunter sign, but it's a pretty obvious rut funnel. I see more fresh sign down here kind of coming out, so I'm assuming as I get back here there's going to be more and more sign coming across, and I don't think that obvious rut funnel is going to be the place to be. What I'm going to do is, to keep my wind and thermals from getting in there, is I'm going to follow this creek bottom, this dry creek up. And that'll show me the sign, the fresh tracks and stuff coming out of these draws going across, and really help me out. It's going to take me a little winding, but I think that is where I will find a sign, the trail crossings and the size of the tracks and such. And I can correlate them back to the direction they're coming from and whether or not they're coming out of those draws. And if I get a heavy concentration on trails, I can move up into the bottoms of these draws based on winds and thermals and set up and catch them coming out. And knowing that they're not going that way through that funnel, really, you check that stuff out and you're not disappointed, because that's where hunters would look, number one. And number two, if they're not coming out over there very much, they just about got to be dropping down here. Either that or they're going up into crops. And if you're going into crops, there really ain't a lot I can do about it, because the bedding would be up into there and even a little onto the private. But from what I seen, it was all beans, and it's all been cut. I have to think they're dropping. Walking up there, glassing onto the private, looks like a lot of food plots. So I'd assume they're dropping through this valley, going to the food plots. That's what the sign's showing me from yesterday. Now I'm just going to get in a little closer, see what we can find. Getting below the first draw right away, I could see a fresh rub right there, broken branches on it, just barely hit. A bed from summer right there where the grass died, a bunch of trails, another bed in there. This is coming down right onto that pipe, so what I want to do is find some really fresh tracks. You can see they've been in here. I keep stumbling on these beds out in the open grass. They don't seem to be being used now, but it seems like up until a few weeks ago they were being used. And just now I spied this trail come through here. Real minute trail, but it goes into this brush and you're like, it dead ends. So you come over here, and it's another one of these little cave beds. Look at that. Just hiding in a little cave. A tree over the top of them, tree behind them. It's a cool looking bed. I followed this draw up from the valley. Right at this point, several fingers of the draw come together. This is like a tight spot with a deer will cross, and I'm hoping I can get a dropping thermal to drop right down this valley. Now there's a heavy crossing right here. There's a lot of traffic going up and down. As you can see, there's big tracks in here. There was a gigantic rub that was actually on a willow tree bigger around than me, down at the next intersection of draws on a trail that comes right down the middle of the draw. And looking at this, the draw's going to split right here. And this place has got a nice little saddle to get through. Nice, easy to pass through. Like this trail here goes up into there. And from the looks of it, a lot of the bedding's going to be up into there by the little fingers and stuff, and even onto some private up there. But everything in here's got little trails on it. Here's another real heavy trail going through right here. Another heavy trail going through right here. There's a little bit of a pine forest up here. And where these trails come together, I don't know if you can see that heavy trail there and heavy trail there, where they go up into the woods there. There's some pine trees up there that have huge historical rubs from year after year after year going up through there, through this tight spot. And I got to this point right here, and I can see more trails going through and going across and using this funnel here. And I can hear acorns dropping. But I was looking at that tree and ended up picking this one here, this little tiny oak tree, because I can hit all of these trails here and still have a good shot into this whole opening here for the ones crossing. I'm not going to go any further up and look at the trails because I don't need to. I can kind of see that they're coming through. Don't want to get my scent over there. I already got it here. That's bad enough. But that tree right there, and right now I can feel a thermal downdraft going down. And, as long as it ain't real hot out, I don't think there's going to be too much of an updraft. The wind's going kind of that way. Naturally, I think this is a good spot. I don't know if I'll sit here tonight. If I don't find something better, I will. But for sure, when the rut starts kicking in 2 weeks and they start really flying through here, that's a tree to strongly consider.
After scouting that draw, I decided to go way back to the far corner of this particular property and check out an area that looked real good on the map.
But the squirrely way I went back there's probably 2 miles, and I burned up most of the day getting back here. This is a very vast public area, and there's only one access, which I kind of like, and I can get way back in these spots. But there's a really good ridge system up here with points and bedding and stuff. And actually, Scott shot his 170 over that way. I don't know, 500 or 600 yards. And I kind of looked through here, and I already kind of know how the deer travel. They're going to travel through here. We're really curious to what was going on over here, so I took a peek. And on the private land, there's a standing cornfield and there's a green field, both of which have being hit really hard right now. I think the deer are bedding up in here. I didn't see a lot of sign crossing, but some, and some fresh scrapes. I really wanted to set up towards the bottom of that ridge, but there's thermals and there's the trails are all over the place. I kind of slid up into this overgrown brush up here in this flat, and I found a spot where all the trails are coming together going up towards the corn. And right here there's a big union of trails, and there's this tree I could get in right up there. It has a natural shooting lane over there and over here. There's a scrape right there, there's a rub right there, there's a big rub right there. That's historical, but the backside of it's rubbed fresh. And there's trails coming in here, trails coming in here, trails coming in over there, trails coming in like this, all meeting here and going down into the corn and green field. And I think this is a pretty good spot. But I did get my scent over there. I'm going to keep looking my way out. I'm going to go up along the cornfield going out. I'm a little worried I may have damaged this for today because of the way I got in here. But this is definitely a spot 2 weeks in rut to hit for sure. But I'm going to follow that corn out. I saw a draw going into the corn further back from these flats. These flats look thick enough to hold bedding. If there's really good sign in there, I might set up over there. I don't know. But I need to start making my way towards the truck because I've been walking all day and I'm running out of time. I need to get in a tree soon. This area is getting hit with EHD pretty hard. Finding dead deer all over the place. This one had a bunch of vultures on it as I was walking up. Nice young doe. It should have been pretty healthy.
For my evening hunt, I ended up going back to a draw that I'd only map scouted and decided to just go in blind. I was just looking for something better than the stuff I seen, and some of the stuff I seen looked better for rut.
I think I'm going to go up that draw up there and set up someplace up there. The spots I scouted so far look better for peak rut, except for the one with all the big rubs. I think is a good morning spot. I think I'd like to slide in there in the morning when they're coming back. But I wanted to show you this, another cave bed. Can you see that? All this grass and stuff. And they burrow themselves in a hole in the shade and sitting there.
When I got up near the top of the draw, around where I was going to set up, I saw a buck fawn bedded under a log, hiding only 10 yards from me. And it kind of struggled getting up. And I wondered if there's something wrong with it. And we had been finding an awful lot of dead deer from EHD. And it didn't want to run away.
Little buck fawn. Kind of funny he was bedded there. There's a scrape right back there. And he was bedded right underneath this log here. I saw him in his bed. I was trying to get the camera out, but he stood up and took a couple steps. Didn't seem too spooked. He was laying right here. Well, he must have just laid down because there's even hardly a depression at all. Because he was laying right here. It's just hardly depressed, so he probably just laid down. I was tempted to set up right here. There's a pretty good trail coming in there and some pretty big rubs and stuff, but I don't know. I think it could be better up further. I was thinking about getting way up in the tip, but it almost seems like they're dropping down into here. There's a lot of sign behind me. I guess if it's not hot, I could slide back, but if they're bedded up here, they might catch me if I move forward. All right, I kind of decided I have to set up here. I'll be able to see up further, and if one comes through up there, I can move. But the main trail's coming from that ridge, coming down here like this. There's a big rub over there that looks fresh right there. There's another rub right here. There's a whole bunch of historical rubs coming through here. There's a scrape under that tree right there. There's some trails coming down. And right here, one of the most convincing things is there is a huge track right there that you could fit your whole hand in. I mean, that's one of the biggest tracks I've seen in a while. I'm thinking a little worried about wind, down this low spot like this. But right now, it is just falling down like this, and I think it's going to fall even better, when the thermals start dropping. This tree, I'm 5 sticks up a dead ash tree, way up there, and the rub trees are over there, the scrapes right there. Sign comes down in like this, sign comes across in here, and I'll be able to see if anything crosses up further. I got a hunch there could be some good crossing up there, but I can't not sit on this sign. I decided to sit back here rather than over there where I kind of cut the distance. It's just encroaching that hillside a little too much, and I have to think a thermal or two are going to drift up there. Playing it safe, just going to cover these trails, and if I have to make a move tomorrow, I'll make a move tomorrow.
I was down in the draw, up near the top, and on the ridge next to me, I saw a nice buck going up the ridge. It looked like a pretty good buck, had a pretty good cage on it.
That's a pretty good buck. I just need to use my 80-yard pin.
And it disappeared into some thick brush up there. It looked like it came from the bottoms down in the grass. And I was kind of seeing a lot of sign down in that grass. It's starting to make me wonder if they're really up in the tops. But it went into this brush up on the top. A short time later, I noticed a buck coming out of where the big buck went in, coming right down past me. Got pretty excited there for a minute, but it turned out to be a smaller buck, one I wasn't interested in shooting. It stopped down in the bottom below me and drank water for quite a while. There's a drought going on down there, and that drought is creating very little water sources, and the water sources seem to be really a key to finding these bucks right now. And this particular draw had a little bit of running water. No other deer were seen on this hunt. The next morning, I decided to go way back to that spot I had scouted that was real remote and get in there as early as possible.
I navigated way back to the spot that had those big rubs and stuff in the cornfield next to it, anticipating the deer coming out of the corn, going back into bedding. Just as I finished setting up, a doe came running in, looking over its shoulder back.
A short time later, another doe came in and caught me up in the tree and started blowing and blowing and blowing and blowing. And then she ran a little ways and started blowing. And then I heard more deer that were coming up that trail start blowing. And then I heard deer leaving. And that was about it for what I seen that morning. But from the tree, I picked out a better tree where I thought I could get away with a little bit more and not get seen. And decided to give that place a rest for a little while and then come back another morning.
That's got to be 5 inches long, 6 fingers wide. One pad here is nearly 2 inches on the back, probably 1 3/4 on the back of the pad. Here it is again. Sitting here in the parking lot and deer just keep coming by. Here comes a buck right there. I'm literally filming from the parking lot. That's crazy stuff. 5 minutes ago, a doe and a fawn came walking right up to the truck and looked at me through the window and walked off. Well, at least I saw a buck this morning, eh? Yeah, he seems frisky. He's like wound up looking for does. Yeah, he's on the run. Look at him. That's a good sign. In one of these funnels, maybe I'll actually see something. But hopefully bigger than that. I went to the same spot I went to yesterday evening. I saw that buck go up that top and he went to there and he kicked the little buck out, came down and sat down in here. I noticed there's some really good trails coming down here. Now I haven't walked over there and I don't want to. But that buck came down here and on those trails and drank water and stuff. He just wasn't big enough. And this tree here blocked my shooting. And the last thing I want to do is kill a hardwood tree. So I moved my stand over to here. 5 sticks up. It's a little close to the main trail. But I think it's a much better option. I can shoot that whole valley. I can shoot all over here, and I can shoot the top. And if that buck does the same thing he did yesterday, he'll be only at about 60 yards. Might be able to get him, grunt him a little closer. I don't know. But I think this is the main crossing. Just give that buck one more chance today. This seems like higher odds than anything I scouted.
No deer were seen on this hunt either.
I'm sitting at the top of this ravine. It gets real steep down there. And there's some bedding points back in here. And behind me there's a really thick cedar grove that probably holds a lot of does. And that's where I found that doe some muzzleloader guy shot on the other side of that thicket. And there's a heavy rub line coming through here with fresh rubs. I mean, you can see a couple of them here. They scraped the ground and rubbed, and a couple over there. There's a real big one over here. And on the trails coming through right here, there's some scrapes over there that are fresh, like within 24 hours. Right over here in those oaks, same thing, trails go through here. So I got trails that come through here like this, trails that come through here like this. That thicket is right there. And you can see the opening beside it, which is the thicket's into private land. So when they come in and out right here, or they come in and out of the points on the public, they gotta go through this little funnel. I think this is a really good spot. Now I did find a half of a hunter's safety harness laying about 75 yards that way. What it looks to be from last year. I don't see any sign of hunters being here yet this year. That's one of the benefits of getting in here the last week of October. all the people taking vacations for hunting get out here the first and second week of November. And this first week I'm beating all the hunters to these spots. Maybe it pays off, maybe it don't. They're not very active yet as far as rutting. But, they lay in sign. And if you can find that sign, they're on a repetitive pattern. You get into rut, they just run all over the place, and then you just got to sit in funnels and hope. But when you get on these patterns, you see these high rubs, you see these fresh scrapes. Them bucks are coming through right now.
I did not see anything that evening. I set the same spot the next morning and just had 2 does come by at 9 o'clock. That evening I went to a new area.
There's very little water with the drought, and I found water back here. And there's a draw going up here that looked really good on the map. And I'm just getting up to it, and man, is that a huge rub. My gosh. That's chest high to the center. And a pretty good trail. That is one heck of a rub there. Looks like there's historical ones from last year too. But man, it would take a big buck to do that. Holy cow. Yeah, that's chest high. That is crazy. Set my bow next to it once. Looks pretty fresh. The rubbings are right on the ground next to it. Look at that. That's crazy. That giant rub is right there on the other side of that tree with all the historical rubs on it. I got to right here, which is 10 yards, and this whole grass erupted right here. 1 big buck, 2 little bucks, and a doe, and they ran up the draw where I was headed. So they're actually bedded in the grass in the shade right here. As soon as I crested this hill, they just erupted out of there right here. They're probably down here because of the water. There's a big drought going on, and this is the only place there's water. A beaver had dammed this up, and some of the water stayed here and pooled. I went into a really remote area. This is kind of landlocked. You have to walk a long ways to get back here. And I went a roundabout way to come through an area of grass to get into here, so that I didn't screw with the ridge at all. I found a big, fresh rub that was huge, obviously off of a big buck. And then right where I found it, I took 10 more steps, and I jumped 3 bucks and a doe. And they were bedded down in the grass, and they ran up into these hills. So then I came up in the hills, and I started looking for sign. There wasn't as much sign as there is down by the grass. And when I was going up the draw, there's a grassy area in the bottom of the draw, and I kicked one out of there too. So I looked around at the top of that. I couldn't find anything I really liked. I found some heavy trails, all doe tracks. So I dropped down to the bottom of this next point. Now I'm really far back, really far away from the truck. And there's a huge draw over here that goes up to some private property where rumor has it they're anti-hunters and they don't allow anybody to hunt their property, and they landlock this big section of public unless you know the access that I know. So I came in here, and there's that grassy stuff was down here, and right back in here, down in this low valley. As soon as I started coming up in here, as soon as I got to the edge of this grassy stuff, I kicked another deer. So there's a spot here where everything is kind of funneled. I got, the top of the ridge, or the top of the draw is up here. I got a ridge that comes down like this. I got this bottom area that's got trails along the edge skirting the downwind side of all that bedding where the last deer jumped. And trail going through the middle of it coming out here. I mean, I wouldn't say this is ideal. I can't find any sign. That one giant rub was all I found. There are a lot of historical ones. I talked to Scott Buckley about this area
told him I was looking at this. And he's the one that showed me the axis that's hard to find. And he said that he shot 2 bucks back here. One of them was a big drop time buck. And anything he shoots is big. But he shot him over the next draw over. I went deeper. But he said last time he was in here, it dried up. His cameras went dead. And he hadn't seen anything in here. He kind of gave up on the area. But there's obviously at least one big one in here because I saw him. And he ran up in here. I did not see anything that evening. I went to a new property. And this one's kind of small. I had to drive a long ways to get here. It's only about 100 or 200 acres, somewhere around there. And basically, it's a big thermal hub. The back of the property is up high, and it comes down into a hub with points and stuff going into that hub. But the problem with it is that hunters walking in will walk right into that base of that thermal hub, and the deer will know that they're there. So I kind of circled the property, came in from the back, and got around to the top here. And on the map, there's a spot where everything kind of came together on the top before they dropped down and stuff out of the bedding points and the neighbors' bedding points and the way they got around the open crop fields and stuff. And everything came together here on the map. And when I came up here, the sign kept picking up all the way up here. The point that's going down to the thermal hub has at least a dozen good rubs that I saw on it. I didn't see any scrapes, but I saw rubs constantly. Matter of fact, there's still rubs beside me. I followed a heavy beat trail, like a sidewalk trail, deer trail coming up here. I don't think too many people are climbing up that hill that I climbed up, but that trail, that heavy trail, goes right over here, right through here, up and through that saddle, and over into a finger of bedding points onto the private land. And then the rub line is kind of, that trail's right here. That rub line comes up the top. It comes from over there, and it comes from over there, kind of meets here, and it kind of comes out right here. And I see some rubs going in here and coming out of these little bowls and points and stuff over here. Like the buck is sitting here, the does are sitting over there, and this is the meeting point. So I'm kind of hoping one comes strolling out right here. There's a heavy trail there. There's a heavy trail here. There's one behind me. And that's too steep for them to get through, so they have to stay up here. So if they come through here, they have to come within range. As long as the wind behaves, it's kind of going that way. And the bucks are coming from that way, so far so good. I wanted to set up just a little bit further down so my thermals would drop down into that valley, but there just wasn't a tree where I could reach everything. This is probably the only tree I can get away with here. It's t-shirt weather. It's hot. It's early season. No deer seen. But you got to just keep doing the grind. And eventually, it pays off. But I'm starting to see a trend at this point. I'm starting to see those deer are down in the bottoms. They're in the grass. There's where there's green stuff. Everything up on these hills is dry as a cracker fart. There is nothing up there for them. So I could take all that map scouting and pretty much throw it out the window. I think those deer are down low. The deer I've been seeing are either down low or coming from down low. Maybe I need to change my game plan. So in the evening, I went in for this hunt. Where I went in quite a ways, and then I went up this draw and found where all the deer were crossing in a saddle through this draw. And there was a lot of sign down low, and I stayed down low. I got set up, I liked the spot, and then I went to do an interview. And in the shadows of the trees and stuff, I noticed that I was really dark on the screen of the camera. There's something wrong with my camera. It looks really dark. And I was like, something's wrong with the camera. I couldn't film anything. I tried filming a squirrel hopping around. You could just see, it was almost completely darkness on the screen. And it was overcast and kind of, dark out, but I should have been able to film. So I was pretty worried about that. I couldn't figure it out. But I finished my hunt, went in, and that particular camera I bought from Josh Talker. So I called Josh Talker and asked him about it. He couldn't figure it out. We were sort of playing with it. And I said I had to press some sort of button or something. You know, I had all kinds of buttons on that camera I can't figure out. I'm not the most technical guy. So then I'm thinking I probably did something when I hit the record. So I looked, and above the record, there's a little photo button right here. So I pressed that button, and all of a sudden I got my light back. And I'm like, oh, that's what it was. Press the button again, it goes back dark. So I figured I'm good to go. I'll use this camera again in the morning. And I headed out to that really remote spot right at the confrontation with the does, and there's a lot of big buck sign there. And I thought, okay, timing's right. I'm gonna give that one more hunt. I'm gonna slide in there. So I got up really, really early. And I flew out there and I did the 2-hour walk back there. And got to my tree before daylight, the new tree I'd picked out. Got into that tree, got set up, and waited for gray light. Opening time came, no deer yet, put the phone back. I felt I got in there pretty clean. 5 or 10 minutes after opening, I look over and I see a buck going by. Now it's about a 140, 145 class buck. Kind of hard to say for sure, but I could see it had a 10 frame and shorter tines. And it's going up through the area and gets to an area I can't see. It's kind of angling away from me. So I figured I need to take a better look at this buck and see if it's a shooter. It was kind of borderline for what I want to shoot in Iowa. The big buck, but I'd shoot that here in a heartbeat, but not in the land of the giants. You know, I got to see it close. If it's really 145-ish, maybe I'll take it. So I get the grunt call, and I hit the grunt call. And I wait, nothing. I let about 5 minutes go by, and I hit the grunt call again. And all of a sudden I hear him coming. Here he comes through the brush. Now about 10 minutes or so has gone by since I've seen him, but he's coming in on a beeline to that grunt call, straight to the tree, not even on a trail. So I go and I get the camera going, I turn it on, and I got that black screen again. Yeah, no problem. I hit that button, screen lights up. But record won't turn on. And I press it, it won't turn on. Turn it off, I can hit record, and I got the black screen. Turn the button on, and I can see the deer and everything, but eventually I just put it on black screen and hit record and just hoped that it's just a screen and it's recording. I looked down, and that buck, while I was screwing with that stupid camera, had got to 10 yards. It's right below me. And I look, and this is not a 145-inch buck. This is not the buck I saw go by. This is a giant. You know, maybe 170, 160, somewhere in there. It's a giant, a wall of antlers. Heavy beans out to the end, wide, and it is standing at 10 yards broadside because I was screwing with that camera and I'm facing the tree. I was like saddle hunting out of the stand for that side, and my bow is on this side of the tree and the buck is on that side, and I'd have it right if I wasn't messing with that camera. The camera has cost me a lot of deer, believe it or not, over the years when you're self-filming, which is why most people have a cameraman. So I'm thinking, well, that deer's gonna walk out underneath me anyways, so I'll just wait. But that deer ain't walking out. He stays there, and now he's getting alert, and he's like looking around, and he's like, oh, what's going on here? I heard grunting, but I don't see no other bucks. I don't see nothing. Something ain't right. And he starts looking flighty, and his head's kind of doing jerky movements. And I'm like, maybe I better get the bow on that side and just take the shot, because right here it's a can't miss shot at 10 yards, completely broadside. And so I get the bow like this, and as I'm coming around, he starts walking. So now I gotta get the bow back around this side. And then I draw the bow as he's coming around my side, and he turns to leave instead of coming into my opening. And I have to wait till he gets out to about 15 yards, and I had a hole. That hole was kind of darkened in the shadows, but I could see the buck just fine. And I got the pin right behind his shoulder, and I hit the trigger, and I hear the arrow impact, and I was locked on with that pin. But I hear a little bone crunch.
I have no idea what's going on with this camera. I can't get it to film. It just films darkness. I was sitting here and a nice buck walked by over here. It was probably about 140 glass. And I didn't know quite if it was a shooter or not. But I called a couple times trying to get him to come in. And he just went by and he was acting kind of nervous. And then all of a sudden right here, a little while later, like 5 minutes later, a giant came walking. He came down like this, came in here, he was real nervous about the grunt, and he stopped right here at 10 yards. And I had to bow on this side of the tree or I'd have shot him right here. And I just waited and he came up real slow, sneaky. And then he went over here and I shot him right there. The arrow sounded good, but it sounded a little bit like it hit meat on the other side, but it should have been like in the far shoulder. And it ran over to there and then stopped and then walked off. And if I double lunged it, it should have crashed over there. It's got me a little nervous. I didn't see the arrow flight, but I had the pin right there. There's a little bit of crap hanging there. I don't know. Maybe I ticked something. I'm hoping that thing's dead. It was a really big buck. That's the opportunity I've been waiting for.
And the deer takes a jump and trots off to 50 yards, and in the heavy brush, all I can see is his head and neck at 50 yards, and it's standing there looking around like this. And it stood there for like 10 minutes. Now, maybe 5 minutes, seemed like 10. But then it disappears. So I'm like, well, what happened? It should have just dropped. It's, I get down and I go over there, and there's tracks dug in the ground where I shot him. There's no hair, no blood, no arrow. So he's got the arrow in him. And I'm fairly certain from the sound of that crunch, that I hit bone but not shoulder blade. It sounded like it just nicked some bones going through, like brisket or upper shoulder, neck. But enough to hang that arrow up into solid meat where it didn't go through the deer. I track it to where I last saw it, no blood the whole way. And where it stood for 5 or 10 minutes, there was some blood on both sides of it. So it looked like it was an arrow through a solid section of it, but the blood was flesh blood and very little blood. I tracked that buck and tracked that buck and tracked that buck. I never found any more blood, any more sign of it. It was like it was just elevated off the earth. And I spent the whole day out there looking for that deer. Went back and checked the footage. I got nothing. I got black screen. You can hear the shot. You can't see nothing. Everything about it sucked. I mean, that was a really huge buck. I mean, that's a buck of 20 years. You get one like that every 20 years. Some people, that's a buck of a lifetime. It's beyond words. I was supposed to spend a couple more days down there, but that just took the wind out of my sails. And by that time, Buckley was home and I was hunting alone, and I was just sitting dwelling on it. I couldn't concentrate. So I packed up and went home. Back to the world of pressure and small bucks. But I plan on going back down there sometime in November and finishing the job. If any of you got that camera, got a Sony camera, and understand what's going on with this, let me know, because I have no clue. I'm ready to toss that thing in the trash. And now I got a black screen.